Heidi from Garden Crossings, and it's been a couple weeks since I've been out at the trial gardens here at Walter's Gardens. So I thought it was time to come out and show you the changes that have happened in just these few short weeks. So the bed I'm going to be showing you today is all the, well, not all, but a big selection and variety of the proven winter perennials. For those of you who are new to this channel, Garden Crossings is a mail order company located in Zeeland, Michigan. We have our online store, gardencrossings.com, as well as our retail location in Zeeland. If you're in the area, stop out and visit us, or you can always visit us online at gardencrossings.com. Let's take a walk through this garden and see what's blooming. This video is going to be packed full of information. I'm going to point out different plants that are either flowering or that have foliage interest. The first plant we're going to feature here is the Sedum Superstar. It's got really nice foliage going on right now. It is mid-June. This plant doesn't bloom until later on in the summer, but the foliage right now has, I think, a lot of cool interest. It's kind of a blue-green with a little bit of a hint of a rosy pink to it. The next plant we're featuring is also a sedum. This is Sedum Bright Ideas. This is going to be a yellow flowering sedum. They're about 12 or so inches tall and wide. This is a grouping of 8 or 9 plants. The nice thing with Bright Ideas is, let's go in and take a closer look here. See how the stems kind of have that red look to them? So that gives kind of some extra character to this plant. It's a mounding type habit. And sedum like to be grown in full sun areas and are also plants that are a little bit more drought tolerant. Behind there, these aren't the best specimens, but I'll show you, is the Echinacea Butter Pecan. So these are just planted, so they really aren't great. But as they grow out throughout the summer, we'll try to feature them a little bit more. Those are the part of the double coated series that will be coming in 2023. Right up front here, we have some of the Dianthus Funky Fuchsia. Smells really nice. It's got nice blue-green foliage going on, kind of that silvery blue. Really large fuchsia flowers. A beautiful spring, early summer bloomer. Looks nice kind of paired there with that sedum. On the trellises there, that is the Stand By Me Clematis. And I'm not seeing the tag on that. I do believe this is the Stand By Me Lavender, which is just a little bit lighter purple lavender than the original Stand By Me. You can see that they are grown in a trellis. This is a non-clinging clematis, so it's not one that's going to wrap and twine around trellises or arbors. It likes to have something kind of holding it in place so that it stays upright. And actually, I see a good one to show you the reason why it should be planted in a trellis. So if we look in the back there, there is a Stand By Me that escaped the rings of this trellis and is kind of laying flat on the landscape. If you planted plants on either side of that, the plants might help hold it up as well, but it does a lot better when it's in a metal form to help keeping it upright. In the back there, that deep black foliage you're seeing, that is the Hibiscus Edge of Night. That will be blooming in August, but I think the interest is right now the foliage, and you can just see how beautiful dark black that is. Up front is the Sedum Yellow Brick Road. This will be a yellow blooming, very low growing, tightly nestled there to the ground sedum. This is going to be more of a mid to late summer bloomer. And behind it, the beautiful heuchera is Peachberry Ice. I just love how that Peachberry Ice really contrasts nicely with all the greens in this garden. Heuchera are a plant that likes to grow in full sun to part shade locations, and you can see how fabulous it's doing here. Behind it is the Salvia Perfect Perfusion, and this is kind of towards the end of its bloom cycle right now. But we'll go in and take a look. It's kind of a very pale blue flower, almost white looking. And you can see there's pollinators, there's bumblebees all over this plant. This is about 18 to 20 inches tall and about that same width. Looks like Kitty came to visit. Next we have the Rock and Grow Bundle of Joy sedum, and I'm going to show you this just for the habit of this plant. It's a nice round ball. This will bloom late summer And these are about 10 inches tall, 12 inches wide. They just create a nice round form. The next plant of interest is another heuchera or corbels. This is the Dolce Cherry Truffles. And this is a little bit deeper pink, or actually a deeper burgundy red. The new growth, we'll go in and take a look here. Has that really brightness to it, where the older growth is just a little bit deeper, and it's got these white flowers on it. Opening act blush is just getting ready to open up. We'll go in and take a look at the buds there. It's just loaded, so that's going to be gorgeous once that starts blooming. The next is another heuchera. This is the Heuchera Primo Wild Rose, a beautiful deep burgundy rose color. The flowers on this particular heuchera are not super significant. It's about 12 inches tall and about 18 or so 20 inches wide. Behind it are some daylilies that will be blooming later on this summer. The Baptisia are in bloom and are absolutely stunning. Here we have the Decadence Pink Truffles, the beautiful pink blooms. Baptisia are a spring blooming native perennial. They're also a great perennial for the pollinators. They have a really pretty vase-like habit where they're kind of tighter at the bottom and kind of get wider as they go up. When they're done flowering, you can give them a light trim, and then it just looks like a nice flowering shrub type of look in the garden. We've got some more salvia here. I believe this one here is Azuri Snow. And this one too is on its way past prime. It features these beautiful lavender blooms with a little touch of white. And there are just honeybees all over this plant. One thing you can do with the salvia is when they are done blooming is you can go ahead and give them a good trim back, and then you should get some repeat blooms a little bit later on in the season. Even kitties like in the Stand By Me clematis. So this is the original Stand By Me with the deep, almost velvet, purple or royal velvet blooms. Kind of a bell-shaped bloom. Really stunning. Looks nice there with that Baptisia in the background. That plant is about 3.5 or so foot tall. And again, you'll notice it's in those trellis forms, or those arbors. Up front here is a new planting of the Dianthus Fruit Punch Classic Coral. These are just planted, so these plants are very small, but I do want to show you the beautiful blooms. Classic Coral has a really great fragrance on it, kind of that nice coral orange color. These will get probably about 15 or so inches wide once they're mature, and then the height on them is about 10 or so inches with the flowers. Heuchera Dolce Spearmint. This is a heuchera or corbels that actually has a pretty significant flower on it. You can see it's got these really bright red flowers. In flower, this plant stands about 20 inches tall. The foliage portion of this plant is only about 10 to 12 inches tall. As far as width, this is a grouping of probably 3 or 5 plants. Each plant gets about 15 to 20 inches wide once it's mature. And the corbels are a great plant too for attracting hummingbirds. They really like those little bell-shaped flowers. Next we have Dianthus Paint the Town Magenta, which is a gorgeous low-growing ground cover. Dianthus tend to like a little bit more of the drier type areas. This here, I'm guessing, was probably 5 or 7 plants when it started, but as they've matured, they've grown all together to create just this beautiful mass of blooming ground cover, beautiful magenta blooms. The foliage on this is kind of a blue-green, maybe a little bit of silver going on. Really gorgeous. Another opening act phlox that will be opening probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Here we have Paint the Town Fuchsia Dianthus, another low-growing perennial. It's just a little bit more like of a bright pink than what the magenta is. I'm going to try to get them both in the picture so you can kind of see the different colorations between the fuchsia and the magenta. Here we have some penstemon lemon squeeze that's trying to come back. So I know you're seeing a lot of brown there in the middle. That's because it was trimmed back to about 15 inches or so. So now all the new growth is trying to work its way through that old dead growth. What I probably would have done is tried to take that dead growth down a little closer to the base if I was trimming it in my garden. It's going to be gone eventually once all the new growth comes through. But lemon squeeze is a very beautiful kind of a chartreuse yellow pennisetum grass. It blooms in August, so it's only about 3 foot tall or so when it blooms, and it's got the really pretty kind of fluffy, airy blooms once it does start to bloom. We have salvia crystal blue. This is almost finished blooming, but we'll go in and take a look at it. Just nice light blue flowers. Once this is done blooming, it can get a light trim and it should be blooming again shortly. Behind it, we have the Amsonia string theory, and this is pretty much done flowering as well. But let's just go in and take a little look at those periwinkle blue star-shaped flowers. Obviously, this garden we're in right now is a full sun garden. Many of these plants can also handle part shade locations as well. So you'll want to kind of do a little research on the plants just to get a better idea of what all locations they are able to handle. Next, we have the oregano, drops of Jupiter, beautiful chartreuse yellow, and this is going to get flowers on it later on in the summer. They're kind of a magenta color, but you can see this is a plant that is a little bit of a spreader. So when you are planting drops of Jupiter in your garden, make sure that you give it plenty of space to roam if this is a look that you're wanting in your particular space. Behind it, there is a Baptisia blue bubbly, and that is kind of on its way done blooming, but a nice soft light blue color, about 3.5 foot tall. Dianthus Paint the Town Red, creating a beautiful mass of color here in the landscape, really low growing ground cover. A little bit more of a red tone than the magenta has. I wouldn't call this color red because I'm seeing a lot of pink coming through it, but it is the closest red that there is so far in this Paint the Town series. Sedum Coral Jade. Again, this is going to be a later in the summer bloomer, but I wanted to show you the foliage on this. These are a rounded mounding habit, about 12 to 15 inches tall and about 15 to 20 inches wide. In the back there, that variegated foliage you're seeing, that is a Heliopsis, and that's a new variety coming later in 2022, 2023. I don't have the name of it off the top of my head, so we'll try to pop that up on the screen. And then you can also see just past that bright yellow and green foliage, there's some more Heliopsis that has more of a pink tinge to it. The leucanthemum that are blooming is the Banana Cream 2. Banana Cream 2 is an improved version of Banana Cream. What sets it apart is it blooms just a little bit earlier, but it also has just a massive coverage of flowers. So Banana Cream was an excellent plant, but Banana Cream 2 is just that much better with just a massive display of flowers on each of these plants. They're about 18 inches tall and about 18 inches wide. One thing with Banana Cream is the brand new flowers, as they emerge kind of a butter yellow color, and then as the flowers age, they turn more white. So you can see the different variations on this plant just starting to open compared to these plants back here that the blooms are further ahead. Here you can actually see a lot of variation in color between the older and the newer blooms. So I do want to also point out this tree here. In the last video I did in this garden walk, it was in bloom, and somebody had asked me what it was called and I wasn't sure. So I wanted to make for sure that I pointed out in this video what this is called. I'm hoping you're watching if you were the one asking the question. This is a Malus Sweet Thyme, and it gets the beautiful spring flowers on it, and then it looks like it's starting to create some berries or some fruit as well. I'm not sure if that's a proven winter tree or not. It just happened to be beautiful and in the video last time, so I wanted to point it out. Here we have some just planted dianthus. This is the cherry vanilla, and these aren't looking super great because they were just planted from probably a gallon or a 2-gallon pot. But let's go in and take a look at the flower color anyways. Very fragrant. It's got some nice blue-gray foliage on it, large blooms, and this plant's about 15 inches tall. Please ignore the habit because this is not a very accurate description of what the habit looks like. It's a nice mounded habit when it is coming out naturally out of the ground. But like I said, these were just planted in the garden, so they're not looking on their A game. Here are some new coneflower that were just planted. These are the Fuchsia is Bright. Kind of just give you a little idea. We'll hopefully get some better pictures of these once the plants are more mature, but just to show you, this is the Fuchsia is Bright. Up front here is the Astilbe, the dark side of the moon. Great dark foliage, and then in the summer when this starts to bloom, it's got pink flowers on it, and the pink flowers contrast gorgeous with this dark foliage. There's a grouping here of 5 plants. They look like they're about almost 24 inches wide, and then once the flower spikes go up, I'm guessing they'll be about 18 to 24 inches tall with the flower spike as well. Some more dianthus that were just planted. These are raspberry ruffles. Again, ignore the habit that's going on here. It's because they were planted from a gallon pot. This kitty just needs its 5 minutes of fame, I think. Toot toot. Here's the beautiful blooms, really large magenta flowers. They smell awesome. Kind of that blue silver foliage as well. Go in and take a closer look here at the flower. So raspberry ruffles, 8 to 10 inches tall for the mound, and then with the flowers they're up more around 12 to 15 inches tall. In the back there are some freshly planted echinacea, raspberry beret. We'll just go in and take a look. Hopefully we'll have better flowers as the summer goes on because these are quite small little petals here, but I think just to see that big, huge coloration is nice, but we'll get better pictures later on in the summer. Monarda red velvet, not flowering yet, but the foliage is really pretty. It's got little hues there of that dark burgundy on it, so that will be fun to watch as the summer goes on. Let's go in and look at these Heliopsis since we're so close. So Heliopsis Touch of Blush is the one with a little bit of pink on it, and then the lighter one is Bit of Honey. More dianthus. This is maraschino, a beautiful red flower, fragrant, great for rock gardens or gardens that are a little bit more on the dry side. Opening act romance phlox, just starting to crack. That will be blooming in about a week or so. Back in black sedum, beautiful deep dark foliage. And the thing that I'm noticing on this particular plant is like each, I don't want to call it floret, but like each end of every branch is just like a big cluster. So this is going to be, I think, a pretty big sedum. Not tall big, but like big flowering once it blooms in the fall. Right now it's only about 18 inches tall and 18 inches wide, but great color even without the flowers going on. Salvia Pink Profusion is gorgeous. It's on its way finished flowering, but let's go in and take a look because from this distance, it looks like it's super vibrant and a lot of color going on. But as we go in closer and take a look, you'll notice most of the petals are actually not even on this plant anymore. So a lot of color just from the the flower that's finished flowering. These two can get trimmed back and will rebloom after they've had a nice light retrim. More dianthus, paint the town fancy. I think the thing that's neat with like walking through this garden every few weeks is just to see like the transformation that goes on. And if you're trying to create a garden that's always has something in color, this video and watching, as these videos go on is great. That way you can time out a garden that always has something in color. This is a new plant for 2023. And shoot, they don't have the name tag in, so we'll pop it up on the screen. This is a campanula or clips. It's just little small flowers, mounding habit, about 12 inches wide, 12 inches tall, with these beautiful little purple blooms. In the back there is spun silk leucanthemum. These were recently planted, so that's why they look a little wilty. They need a little water. But let's take a look here at the flower of spun silk. A very wispy, kind of frilly looking flower petal. Really gorgeous when it's in bloom. It's about 24 inches tall and about 24 inches wide. More of the clematis, Stand By Me. Let's go take a close look here. This is in its prime right now. Beautiful little flowers just dangling in the breeze. Another new campanula. This is white clips. This is new for 2023. Just starting to flower with the beautiful little white flowers. Sedum tiramisu, fall bloomer, but great foliage even here in June. And if you notice, tiramisu, the leaves are a lot narrower and more strappy than what we saw earlier with the back and black. Little planting here of the Salvia Violet Profusion. Sedum Rock and Grow Pop Star, a low growing sedum. Baptisia Sparkling Sapphires, a deep purple blooming Baptisia. And that one is kind of almost done. In the background, the beautiful yellow Baptisia is lemon meringue. We have Cat's Meow Nepeta. This plant is huge right now. And what can happen with this is once it stops flowering is go ahead, give it a trim, and it'll be back at it again in no time. Here we have Salvia Violet Riot, a little bit taller than the Profusions. In the back there, I think we talked about it already, but Baptisia Pink, actually we didn't. This is Baptisia Pink Lemonade, part of the Deluxe series, just a little bit taller than you can see there of the lemon meringue. Pink Lemonade features light yellow and pink blooms. A nice native plant. Here we have opening act white phlox starting to bloom. One thing to point out with the opening act series of phlox is they are a little bit of a spreader. So the clump continues to kind of get bigger and bigger every year. Where typically your tall phlox the clump gets bigger, but it kind of stays more in place. The opening act kind of spreads a lot quicker. Not quicker in a bad way, but just give it plenty of room because it will spread and continue to get larger and larger. Here we have the Baptisia Cherries Jubilee. Absolutely gorgeous looking right now. The phlox blooming there in the back is Cloudburst. That looks gorgeous right now. Cloudburst is more of like a tall phlox type. Really pretty flowers. Salvia Pink Dawn, looking pretty good. Dicentra Pink Diamonds. So you can grow bleeding heart in full sun and it'll be gorgeous. This is one of the long blooming perennials. that is always in bloom no matter where we're at here in the season. It's got blue-green foliage, a little bit of silver hue, beautiful pink blooms. The plant itself, foliage is about 10 inches tall, and then with the flowers, they're about 12 to 15 inches. So this is, if you're looking for a plant that blooms all summer, that is it. Some leucanthemum marshmallow that was just planted, so it looks a little not favorable. But let's go in and take a look at the blooms. Large double blooms, beautiful. We'll catch those later on in the summer when they're more naturally coming out. And in this bed here, these are new varieties for 2023. So we'll continue to watch these as they continue to fill out and grow. They're quite small specimens right now, so not much to really point out or talk about, but we'll do it as they continue to get larger. I hope you've enjoyed walking through the garden today, looking at all of the proven winter perennials that are currently in bloom. We'll continue to update you on the progress of this garden as the summer goes on, because it's constantly changing with color. This is Heidi from Garden Crossings.